Welcome to week 5 of Education 406. This week we're going to look at our learning outcomes, tasks, and assessments, and then what we'll be digging into in our interactive notebook versus another task that you'll complete outside of your interactive notebook. So if we navigate to our syllabus so that we can see what our learning outcomes are, what our assessments are, and what our tasks are, you're going to see that we don't have as many as we've had some in the previous weeks, but you're going to be looking at identifying effective instructional plans regarding nonfiction text connections and summarizing and synthesizing. You're also going to be reflecting on current reading instruction in a field experience classroom and connect that to what we're talking about in the course. So you have your weekly discussion board as well as your strategies that work chapter reflection or chapter work within your interactive notebook. But this week we also have something outside of your interactive notebook, which is your reading lesson observation. So I'll walk you through all of those pieces, but the discussion board and interactive notebook is following suit with what you've done in weeks 1 through 4. The reading lesson observation is the new piece, but we will take a look at that. So let's go into your week 5 content folder so that we're able to see what your discussion board post is. So in chapter 12, the authors speak to summarizing and synthesizing. I want you in this post to talk about what is the difference between the two. How does one impact the other with regard to reading comprehension? Why are these two strategies critical for successful reading comprehension? And what challenges do you foresee for students with these two strategies? And so take a minute to look through chapter 12, get a good firm understanding of the difference between summarizing and synthesizing. What is that difference? How do they impact each other? Why are these so critical for students to be successful in reading, and what challenges do you see? Remember that you are posting your thread and then you will reply to 2 other posts. And then let's go ahead and navigate back to week 1 so that we can pull up our interactive notebook and look at week 5. So here, this is following suit with what you did in week 4. So what you did in week 4 with your bullet point list of your strategy lessons, you're going to continue for week 5. And so we're just doing that with the last 2 chapters of the strategy lesson section of the textbook. So this week we're focusing on nonfiction text connections and summarizing and synthesizing. So you're going to, again, with the 11 strategy lessons about nonfiction text connections, you're going to list what those lessons are, and a main idea summary of those lessons will follow. And then for summarizing and synthesizing, you're doing the same thing with those 10 strategy lessons. So make this something that works for you. Make it something that you can refer back to when you're looking for nonfiction, text connection, reading comprehension activities. This can be something you go back to. The same for summarizing and synthesizing. So this is, you have 21 strategy lessons that you're going to be bullet listing and summarizing, but it's not a lot of different work to do. It's just making sure that you get all that in here in a manageable format so that it works for you. Now again, if we go at our at our syllabus, we see a reading lesson observation. So if we go back into our week 5, we see here reading instruction observation, both your rubric and your Turnitin link. So let's go ahead and pull up your rubric for your reading instruction observation. So this is worth 50 points. I want you to observe a reading lesson within your current classroom or school. So for those of you who are TAs in schools or are in another field experience, you're going to use that placement to do this observation. If you are not in a placement, I will need to send you a lesson on video that you can watch and write your reflection on. So please let me know that. You're going to submit a reflection on the lesson, no less than 2 pages, and there's your criteria for formatting, and make sure that it includes your standard course of study connection, the Big 5 reading connection. So is their lesson connecting to phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary comprehension? So although this course focuses on reading comprehension, we're not going to necessarily be able to be picky enough to say, we want to observe a lesson, but it has to be reading comprehension. So we just want to be able to observe a reading lesson in general. You're also going to include a summary, including teacher actions and student actions, reflection of the lesson, including the percentage of students who understood the standard by the end of the lesson. Make sure, as always, you refer to the rubric. So, again, here's your requirements for setup of the reflection. Your summary needs to be well written with very few or no errors. You include the standard course of study, the Big Five reading connection, summary, teacher, and student actions. You're connecting it to the course content, so you're going to be using evidence from the text. So if you're observing a lesson, and you can make connections to the text that we're reading, then that's what I'm looking for here. It may be a little bit difficult since we are reading about comprehension specifically, and this may not be a comprehension lesson, but I'm sure and I'm confident that there are still connections that can be made about best practices in reading instruction. So those can still be there, still happen. Implications for teacher and students is clearly articulated. So what is the implication of this instruction, of this lesson, of the plan? If you're observing a lesson to where we don't know what the standard is and we're not really sure if this aligns to any of the Big Five reading components, then what implication does that mean? What effect is that going to have on the students and on the teacher? And then the same for the opposite. If you're seeing a really strong lesson that is very clearly connected to the standard, very much so aligned with one of the Big Five reading areas, then what does that mean? How is that going to benefit the students and teachers? And then your reflection of your opinion of the observation, not article, but the observation. Make sure that your reflection is clearly articulated and well written. And that's just going to be, you have your summary up here about the lesson that you're observing. This is your reflection, your opinion, your takeaway on that lesson. And then at least one question that's included in the reflection and is related to your observation. So don't ask just like a simple question of, how will I do this in my classroom? I want you to really dig deep and ask some questions, or ask at least one question that will kind of cause you to maybe want to investigate something a little bit further. So make it more than just a general question. And then once you are finished with that observation and reflection, you will click here on your Turnitin link to submit it. So this week we have our discussion board, interactive notebook, including your work on summarizing those lessons for chapters 11 and 12, and then your reading lesson observation. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out and let me know. Otherwise, good luck on week 5.